Okay, shalom lekulam. Before you see Rav Nason Maimon explain this part of Likutey Aleph, Torah Yud Beis, I first heard tremendous things about this Torah from Rabbi Nachman, from Rav Schneider, and I hope that he would say more on it. I still hope he will say more, but I haven't been able to arrange this for a few days, so I'm going to just shortly say about this. The demon running on the top of the wall, the Shin Daled Yudi, like Rabbi Nachman says, is, in Rabbi Schneider's interpretation, is a professor, and he can do great tricks. He has tremendous bekiyas and amkus and crazy things that he can do. But he's a Shin Daled Yudi, and it's all from the other side. And that he can do these tremendous things. He's pouring wine from one glass to the other and jumping from mule to mule. And the real Tzaddik, the Talmid Chacham, is on the bottom, and he's running with his full might, and he can't keep up with him. That's the Torah Jew. He's on the bottom. Bottom is Malchus, as it's known, Rav Schneider says, and I also heard from Rav Yitzhak Ginsburg Shlita, that this is Breslov. Breslov is tefillah. Without tefillah, and these people are the mochin. He's up on top. That's the mochin. And there's much more to say about this. And just one more word, that Rav Schneider's mother and Rav Nason Maimon, who's saying this shir, Schwieger, are all sisters or first cousins from the Feivelson family, from Rav Naftali Trop, the Hofetz Chaim's Rosh Yeshiva. Okay, now Kol Tov.
Rabbi Nazal says that what we learned so far, we're going to show now how it's all hinted to in an extraordinary story in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Raba Bar Chana once said, "Ledidi chozili churmis parlilasa." I once saw a shade. A shade is something that's half angel, half human being. The Gemara says in Chagiga that on Friday afternoon, Hashem created the world on Sunday, Kaviyach, the first day of the week, on a Sunday. Friday, the sixth day of creation, when Hashem created Adam Rishon, right before Shabbos, when Shabbos was about to begin, there were certain ruchos that had not yet been put into bodies. There were certain spirits that never got a chance to be put into bodies, in a sense. And they remained kaviyochel in an unfinished state. This doesn't mean like Hashem couldn't get the job done in time. Chas v'sholom. Hashem controls time. Hashem creates time. But this is the way the Torah presents it to us, that these represented like a certain concept of unfinished beings. And as a result, number one, in some ways they're like angels, some ways they're like human beings. They reproduce like human beings. They die like human beings. But they fly like angels, they're invisible like angels. The Gemara mentions three ways that they're similar to Maluchim, three ways that they're similar to people. These are called shadim, and the Gemara discusses them many times. It's important to note that there are Jews. There are Jews who are lacking in Judaism, plain and simple. They don't believe in these items. They don't believe that these items ever existed or do exist. They Vilna Gaon in Shulchan Aruch, besides many other great rabbis, say that a person who doesn't believe that these items existed or exist is actually a kofar. It's considered an apikoros, chas v'shalom. Because this is one of the basic tenets of our faith, to believe that such things existed, that Hashem created such items. So now Rabbi Baruch Chana said, I once saw one of them whose name was Churmiz, the son of Lil, the angel Lil. The Hava Korohit Akupa the Shura the Mechuza. This shed was running on the spiked edges of the top of a fence that surrounded the city of Mechuza. The city of Mechuza was surrounded by like this wooden fence with these points on top. This shed was running along those points. Barohit, Prussia, and a rider was riding below him. In other words, alongside this fence, there was like a soldier riding, period. And this Prussia was riding a horse below this, where this shed was, below Yochele, and he couldn't outrun the shed. He couldn't keep pace with the shed. This shed was running on foot on top of this spiked fence. This soldier was riding on a horse below, and the shed was going faster than the soldier. Zimna Choda, one time, having the sargenle tarte chiyusa, they gave him 2 animals to ride, 2 fast mules. And he kept switching off, jumping from one to the next. Nesargin means like jumping from one to the next. The kaimen atre gishrei de dunag. And these 2 mules were on the 2 bridges that crossed the river Dunag. Dunag was a river. There were 2 separate bridges that went across it. One mule was on one bridge, another mule on the other bridge. This shed was jumping back and forth from bridge to bridge, riding these mules like across the bridge. The shovan mehai lahai, he jumped from A to B and from B to A. The nokat trei kasa de chamra biyode, while he was holding 2 cups of wine in his hand. Umoirak mehai lahai, and he was pouring from one cup to the next. V'loi natseminayu natvo la'ara, and not one drop spilled on the ground. Picture what a malach is capable of doing, what a shed could do. This shed was able to be riding these 2 mules, jumping across from one bridge to the other, while holding 2 cups of wine, pouring back and forth without a drop spilling. And you think it was a clear day? You think the sky was clear and the sun was shining? The Gemara says, that day the weather was so terrible that Yalu Shomayim Yerdu Sohimois Haba. It was one of those days where like the waves go up to the heavens and go all the way down to the Tohimos. When sailors are out at sea and there's a storm, a tremendous storm, it's called Yalu Shamayim Yerdu Tohimos, where the ship goes way up into the air and dives back down into the water because it's so stormy. So there was such a tremendous storm going on at the time, and this shed was able to pull off this whole juggling act. The Gemara says, the Shamis Malchusa, and the king found out about this. The Rashbam says this means either the king of the shadim or the king, the Roman king at the time, the Katle, and he had this shed put to death. Look in the Rashbam. The Rashbam is going to explain this now. Again, on Baba Basra, we don't have Rashi, so we have the Rashbam. Hormiz Shedhu. Hormiz was one of the shadim. Kidamrinon the Sanhedrin, as the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Mi Palgoch the Tatoi to Hormiz. From your waistline and down, you belong to Hormiz, the Gemara says, talking about this shed. Akupa de Shura, al Shinei Hachoima. He was running along the teeth of the wall, meaning those spiked edges of the fence. V'hai uvdo, the Gemara tells this story, to teach us the kindness of Hashem, shemarachim al briyosav, that Hashem has pity on us human beings, ve'enoi noisen reshus la'elu lahazik, and He doesn't allow these shadim to do any harm to us. Meaning you should know that there exist such characters around that are capable of doing such unbelievable things. Now you picture if they ever decided to pick a fight with us, it's all over for us. So the Gemara wants to teach us how powerful these shadim are, what kind of unbelievable things they can do, and still Hashem controls them and doesn't allow them to do any harm to us. That's one reason why we're being told this. The Gam Shaloi Loses Baderech Yechidi. It's also being told us as a reminder that a Jew is not supposed to go out at night alone, because nighttime is a time when these shadim have power, they have strength. And specifically, if a person is walking alone at night, these shadim are in a position chas v'shalom to do harm to them. Verohit Prussia, a soldier, a cavalryman, was running along, was riding a horse. Tuma, he wasn't racing the shed, he was riding the horse at regular speed. The shed was able to outrun the horse. However, this cavalryman wasn't racing with the shed. His kavanah wasn't to race the shed, he was riding the horse regular speed, and the shed was outrunning the horse. Nisargin. I made a mistake. When we translated the Gemara, we said the word Zimna Choda, having the Sargin lay Tarte Chiyusa. One time they alternated two animals, and that's what I said. Here the word Nisargin means they saddled. They saddled 2 fast-running mules for him. Nisargin here, the Rashbam says Nisargin, Shoya Ukos, Nisarga, Nisunin al Hapredos. A saddle and a strap, so a set of reins were put onto these mules. Trey Gishri the Dunak, Shem Oisai Nohor. Dunag is the name of a river that these bridges were on. These two bridges were far apart. The Hashed Medalig mi Predazu, the Predazu. And the shed was jumping from one mule to the other mule across these two bridges. Tarte Kasta de Chamra, Shnehem Malayim Yayin. Both cups were full of wine. This shed was spilling. You picture having two full cups of wine spilling from one end to the other, like in midair, having the liquid go flying through the air and catching this set of liquid here, this set of liquid here, while jumping across these two bridges without a drop of the wine. And not one drop of wine spilled. Even though on that day there was a tremendous storm, to the extent that those people, those sailors who were out at sea in ships, the ships went all the way up to Shemayim from the high waves that were blowing. And then they went all the way down like to the depths of the sea. That's how strong the wind was blowing at that time. And still not one drop of wine fell on the ground. This is part of a pasuk discussing sailors in Tehillim. The king found out about it and killed this shed. Malka the Sheda. Rashbam says this means the king of the shadim found out what this Hormuz was doing, and he had Hormuz put to death. Why? Because shadim are not supposed to show themselves to people. And they killed this shed because he was showing the secret powers of shadim to people. He was showing off this power that he had to human beings, which they're not allowed to do. That's one opinion. The Islamri, there are those that say, Malka, that when it says the king, it means Caesar, the Roman king. The king was afraid that this shed would take over his kingdom. Because this shed was actually born from a human being that had relations with a female shade, a sheda, and this shade, Hormuz, lived among people. Note there was similarities between them and people. So this shed was living among people. The Roman king found out about it and had him put to death. Period. This is the story as it appears in the Gemara. Rabbeinu is going to take every word of this story apart and show us how this story actually has hidden in it the whole shir that we've learned so far, this whole discussion about people learning Gemara the right way and the wrong way and everything that happens. This will explain in the next year. There are 4 shir Yud days in Likutey Moharan Chelik Aleph. In our Likutey Moharan, it's page 37, the left-hand column, about 2/3 way down the page. To give a very brief introduction, Rabbeinu Zal in this torah is talking about the concept of learning Torah Shebal Peh, and he explained that there are 2 possibilities. When tzaddikim learn Torah Shebal Peh, Gemara, the right way, then what happens is there's a very strong connection that's made between the person that's learning the Torah Shebal Peh and the Tana, the original Tana who originated the statements in the Torah Shebal Peh. There's a connection that's made that's called Nishikin. It's as if there is a merging between the Ruach of the Tana that started the Divrei Torah and the one that's repeating it now, the one that's reviewing it now. Whereas, if the person that's learning the Torah Shebal Peh now is a person that's learning it improperly for the wrong reasons, for gaiva, for other reasons, then Rabbeinu Zal said, Torah is neshikoi soinei, that to kiss an enemy is despicable. And if the Gemara says that a person who learns Gemara for the wrong reasons, nezela toiva hemenu, a nezela is better than him, you could imagine nobody wants to kiss a nezela. Certainly this Tana doesn't want to make this connection with this type of person. And Rabbeinu Zal explained also that the question is, how is it conceivable that the words of the Tana have in them a potential for a person to learn them the wrong way, for a person to learn the words of the Torah Shebal Peh in a way that's destructive? Rabbeinu Zal explained that this is necessary. It's necessary for the tzaddikim to be forced into a mistake, in a sense, to be forced to what's called the left side, in order that they have an association over there, because it's only from the left side that parnasa and ashirus and kavod come to the world. And since the world needs those items, and if the tzaddikim were allowed to stay only on the right, even though, as we explained, on the right side there's also ashirus v'kavod, but since on the right side there's also arichas yomin, there's also very holy items, the tzaddik, given the choice, when he's on the right side, he picks the arichas yomin. He won't pick the oisher v'chavod that's there also. It's only when the tzaddik is forced to the left side, where there's only oisher v'chavod, once he makes the connection there, that's what allows him to be able to bring a hashpah of ashirus and kavod to the world. That's why the tzaddik has to go to the left side. Once he goes to the left side, it implies that in his words there's a mashmos of Ra. There's a potential for somebody to learn the words of this tzaddik, of this Tana, and be able to derive something negative from it. This is how these people learn Gemara, in a way where it shines negativity in them. It shines bad things into them. And Rabbeinu Zal said that it's these people in particular that quite often end up speaking against tzaddikim. What does the tzaddik do when he hears a lamdan of this type who's knowledgeable in Gemara and using his knowledge of Torah to open up an ugly mouth to a tzaddik, to insult a tzaddik? Rabbeinu Zal explained that when the tzaddik hears the words coming from the mouth of this type of lamdan, the tzaddik is able to figure out what the origin of those words were, meaning these insults that this person is insulting the tzaddik with, those words coming out of his mouth originate from Torah Shebal Peh that he took into his mouth. And he perverted it, and he distorted it, and he rearranged it to be able to come out with these insulting statements to the tzaddik. When the tzaddik hears it, he reconstructs it, he receives it, and rearranges it, reinterprets it as the original format of Torah Shebal Peh that this person learned it in. And Rabbeinu Zal explained, we learned in the previous shurim, that by doing this, the tzaddik actually, by accepting these insults the right way and doing everything that he has to do with it, this tzaddik is able to affect all the different stages of the zivug of the Shechina, which include the neshikin and the other steps that lead up to an actual zivug between Kodesh Baruch Hu and the Shechina. This is a summary of this Torah Likutey Moharan. Then, at the end, the last thing we had was the story from the Gemara. Rabbeinu Zal quoted one of the stories of Raba bar Hana about one of the shadim and certain extraordinary things that this shade did. And now Rabbeinu Zal is going to explain that story in the Gemara and show how it's actually hinting to all the different things that we learned in this Torah Likutey Moharan. Let's begin. We're starting from the explanation of the Gemara. We did the Gemara in the previous year. L'didi chozili hormiz. Raba bar Hana said, I once saw hormiz. Pirush Rashi, and Rashi, this is actually the Rashbam, not Rashi. That's a printer's mistake, I believe. The Rashbam explained, Shedhu, that Hormiz was one of the shadim. Bar Lilasa, and this shade was the son of Lil. Another shade called Lil, Lamed Yud Tov, this shade. Rabbeinu Zal explains, Zeh Talmidei Chachomim Shadin Yehudoim. This refers to those Talmidei Chachomim that are called Jewish shadim in a sense, where their learning is in this wrong type of way. This is why this particular shed is associated with night. Kemuva b'medrash, as is explained in the medrash. During the period of 40 days and 40 nights that Moshe Rabbeinu spent in heaven, receiving these secrets of Torah from Hashem, how was he able to tell when it was day, when it was night? In Shemayim, you don't see the sun rising or setting. So the Medrash asks, how did he know when it was day or night? And the Medrash explains, during the daytime, Hashem taught Moshe Rabbeinu Torah Shebichsav, the written Torah. At night, Hashem taught him Torah Shebal Peh, the oral Torah. So we see that nighttime is the symbol of the limud of Torah Shebal Peh, Gemara, Mishnayos. The ikar time for that is nighttime. So we see already that this Gemara is going to be talking about a shade that's associated with nighttime, meaning a Talmud Chacham Shed Yehudoi who's associated with Gemara, Torah Shebal Peh. And this shed was running along the pointed edges of a fence that surrounded the city of Mechuza. Rabbeinu says this fence around the city, that's the symbol of Zehu Zeh Tzadik Hador. The Tzadik of the generation is symbolized by a fence around a city. Shetalmid Chacham Shed Yehudoin Roidev Es HaTzadik Hador Shenim Shalachema. The Talmid Chacham Shed Yehudi chases after the Tzadik Hador, who is compared to a wall, a fence. Now, as we said, rohit means to run, either running on top of or running after, chasing after. Kemaimar Chazal, as the Gemara says in Baba Basra, Talmidei Chachomim Ein Tzorech Lenetirusa. The Gemara over there is talking about taxes. Who's mechuyev to pay taxes to the government? Who isn't? So the Gemara says that one of the reasons why people pay taxes is for protection, for shmira, that the government provides police, army, other services that's supposed to protect the people in the country, and they pay for that service. That's part of what your tax money goes, to be able to pay the salaries of these people, the police, the firemen, all the different forms of shmira. So the Gemara says, for this reason, Talmidei Chachomim are not required to pay taxes. Why? Because Talmid Chacham Ein Tzorech Lenetirusa. He doesn't require shmira. He himself is a shomer. His torah is what protects the city also, and what protects himself. So that in a sense, the fact that he's Talmid Chacham, he's called a shomer also. So we see here that Talmidei Chachamim are compared to a fence around the city that provides protection, shmira. So this Talmid Chacham Shed Yehudi was chasing after the Tzadik Hador. When we say about the shed running on top of the fence, this is symbolic of the Chacham Shed Yehudi chasing after the Tzadik, looking to insult him and to harm him. Verohit Prussia, and we said that there was a soldier riding below alongside this fence, riding on his donkey or on his horse. And Pirish Rashbam, the Rashbam said, Lefi Tumai, that this rider wasn't racing, he was riding at regular speed. Prussia, Zeh Hatano Shechidesh Zois HaTorah. The word Prussia, which in the Gemara over there means like a cavalryman, the word Prussia is symbolic of the Tana who originated the Chiddush in the Torah Shebal Peh. Upirsha Oisa Yofe, and he explained it well. Lefaresh means to explain. V'hoitzi lo'or ta'aluma. He's the one who revealed this secret item that wasn't known before he taught this Chiddush in Torah, this item in Torah Shebal Peh. Gam Oisoi Roidev. Him also, this Chacham Shed Yehudi is chasing. He's chasing the wall, the fence of the city. He's chasing the Tzadik Hador, and he's also chasing the Prussia. He's also chasing the Tana who originated the Dvar Torah. Rabbeinu Zal says, Avol Lefi Tumai. But he's doing it Lefi Tumai. He's acting with Tmimus. Ki Talmid Chacham Shed Yehudi Eimen Mechavin Lirdois Es Hatana. The Chacham Shed Yehudi, he doesn't really intend to fight with the Tanoim. That's not the one whom he's battling against. V'zois Haradifo Nasa Memela. But he ends up chasing him anyway. He ends up doing harm to him anyway. In other words, we're talking about, let's say, a person living in the 1800s. A Chacham Shed Yehudi who was chasing after, who was being roidev, the tzaddikim of his door, of his generation, who learned Torah Shebal Peh. And the Chacham Shed Yehudi learns Torah Shebal Peh. This Chacham Shed Yehudi is actually hurting two people. He's battling against the tzaddikim in his door, and without his knowing, he's also battling against the Tanoim who originated the words of the Gemara. By his learning their words, it's as if he's doing harm to them. He's trying to mess them up. That's why it says that when the Prussia was running below Lefitumai, that the Shed Yehudi was running on top of the fence, and he was running on top of the fence, plus the Shed Yehudi was racing against a Prussia, but Lefitumai. So it's not intending to race with this cavalryman. When the Prussia had a horse below him. This cavalryman was riding, sitting on top of a horse. Rabbeinu Zal explains, because a lamdan, when he learns the words of the Gemara, he actually brings the Tana back to life. It's as if he takes the neshama of the Tana and gets it put back into its body. And the concept of returning the neshama into the body is compared to a rider on top of a horse. The horse is considered on bottom and a tofel to the rider. The Zohar HaKadosh gives a moshel between the neshama and the guf of a Jew, that it's compared to a sus and a roichev al gaboy. The guf is compared to a sus, a horse. The neshama is compared to a rider on top of the horse. The neshama is supposed to be the one to control the reins of the sus. The neshama is supposed to be the one to control what the eyes look at, what they don't look at, what the mouth says, what it doesn't say, what the ears listen to, what they don't listen to. That's this moshel of a roichev on a sus being compared to the neshama in the guf. So when it says here that the Prussia, the Tana, was Rochiv al Susya, this means that through a person learning Torah Shebal Peh, he brings the Tana back to life. He causes the Tana's neshama to be put back into the guf, which means this Rochiv al Susya. The horse was below him. He was sitting on top of the horse. Because it's we below, we down here on earth, that have the power to cause the nefesh of the Tana, the soul of the Tana, to be put back into his body, and to actually bring the Tana back to life. As the Pasuk says, the Gemara says that when you repeat words that a rabbi of an earlier generation said, his lips move in the grave. How do his lips move? The body is a corpse, it's dead. It's Kaviyachol, Hashem puts the neshama back into the body and brings it to life, allowing the lips to move. But we said that the horse, that the rider on top of the horse was not able to outrun this shed. That's one taich of the words v'lo yochele. The words v'lo yochele also mean shehatana lo yochel lizboil es neshikosoi. The Tana can't stand him. Lo yochel means he couldn't stand him. The Tana can't stand a connection, a kiss, with this lamdan who's learning Torah Shebal Peh the wrong way, with this shed. Because the Gemara says that a person who learns Gemara the wrong way, a nevela is better than him. And the kiss of an enemy is extra. It's unwanted. Therefore the Tana tries to run away from him, to outrun this shed. And if you might want to ask, how is it possible that the Torah of the Tana does not cause this lamdan to be turned around, to be improved? The other Raba, whereas just the opposite, we find that these wrong types of lamdans, when they learn the Gemara, not only doesn't it make them more humble and better, but it makes them into bigger Bali Gaiva. This knowledge itself gives them Gaiva. How does this come about? That from the holy words said by this Tana, the lamdan is able to get messed up. The Gemara answers on this. One time, they saddled two horses for this shed, and they put one horse on one bridge, we said, and the other horse on the other bridge. Rabbeinu Zal explains, There are times when a Tana, a very great tzaddik, is forced to fall into a very tiny, delicate type of mistake. In order that the world should be able to receive two types of chiyus, two types of chayim. Because there's two types of chiyus that the world needs to be able to live. Chiyus ruchni, spiritual life, oirech yomim b'yamina, which is compared to that pasuk, oirech yomim b'yamina. That doesn't mean physical long life. It means arichas yomim, meaning kedusha, spirituality. The chiyus gashmi is a second type of life that the word needs, a gashmias type of life, which is a concept that on the left side of the Torah you have ashirut, parnosa, all the physical needs. And the Tana, because he's so solidly attached to that right side, to the chiyus haruchni, einoi matir es atzmai chas v'sholem mikol v'chol mechiyus haruchni. He doesn't want to untie himself at all from that chiyus haruchni. He doesn't want to let go of that at all and draw from the left side. Therefore, umachmat shehu nofal b'chinas halimud shaloi l'shmo b'shvil chiyus hagashmi, and because of the fact that Hashem forces him to make this tiny kind of mistake, which means that the Tana gets pushed to that left side just for a second, like that Shvi Adaka represents his making slight contact with that left side. B'shvil chiyus gashmi, in order that the world should be able to receive chiyus gashmi. Kaimen atrei gishrei dedunag. We said have zimna choda one time have a mesaken like tata chiyusa. Hashem set it up whereby the Tana should affect tate chiyusa, two types of chiyus. By the Tana falling into the Shkia Daka, he's able to bring to the world both types of chiyus. And we said these two chayos were standing on the two bridges that cross the river Dunag. The shovar mehai lahai, and the shed was jumping back and forth from one horse that was on one bridge to the other horse that was on the other bridge as these horses were running across the bridge to cross this river Dunag. Rabbeinu Zal explains, Kemoy Odom, the word Dunag is the name of a river in the Gemara. The word Dunag also means wax. We have it in the Zmiras on Shabbos, Kadoinag Nomasu. We have it in the davening Friday night, right? What's the pasuk? It's a pasuk in Tehillim. We say it in the Friday night davening that the mountains were melted like wax. Dunag means wax. So Rabbeinu Zal says, "Kemoy odom she'oimed al gesher shel shaiva." The Gemara is referring to a mashal, an example of a person standing on a bridge made of that has wax on it. The eino yochel lamoid, and on wax you can't stand without slipping. So the person feels himself falling. He tries to jump off that and jump to something else, which is not slippery. And because the second place is also slippery, it also has this wax on it. This second bridge also went across the river Dunag. The person jumps back to the first. He keeps slipping and falling from one side to the other side. He keeps jumping back and forth from one side to the other. So too the Tana, this Tana, his main learning is always lishma. He really wants to learn for the right reasons and in purity. And because this Tana must be able to help to bring gashmiistic achiyas to the world also, Hashem forces the Tana into a tiny shgia daka, a tiny form of limud shaloi lishma. Azai noitlen imenu limud bechinas lishma. Hashem takes away from the Tana his limud of lishma, the shovar mi lishma l'shaloi lishma, and the Tana is forced. It's like Hashem pulls out the rug from under him on the right side, and he's forced to go flying to the left side. And because the Tana was so holy and so ascetic, so separated from Gashmias, the second that the Tana finds himself on that left side, on that Gashmiastic side, the second he realizes he's over there, he jumps immediately back to the other side. Because this concept to the Tana is like a bridge of wax. So it's like a bridge of wax. Just like on a bridge of wax, you can't stand, you keep slipping and falling. The Tana jumps back to the side of Lishma. And when he's on the side of Lishma, because of the fact that the world needs Chiyas Gashmias, he's forced to jump to the other side. He jumps from that side, which to him now becomes like a waxed floor, where he's forced to jump off it, to jump to the other side. And the Tana keeps jumping back and forth from one side to the other side. And through this, as a result of the fact that the Tana was forced to jump to this left side and to make contact with that, that's what creates this bechina of upoishim yikoshlubam. The Gemara says that when it comes to Torah, tzadikim yelchubam, upoishim yikoshlubam. The same page of Gemara, one person will learn it, and it'll improve him, it'll make him more religious, it'll make him into a better person, and another person will learn that same page, and it'll make him worse. How? Because the Tana who originated the Gemara had to bounce back and forth. He had to have contact with the right side and the left side in order for the world to be able to receive Shefa Gashmi. Rabbeinu Zal says, Hatikkun l'kol hanal. So what's the tikkun for all of this? Now that the Tana's words have this mashmos of Ra, and you have these lamdonim, these wrong kind of lamdons, this chacham shed Yehudi, who learns the Tana's words and it doesn't improve him, it makes him worse. And as a result, he ends up speaking, insulting against tzaddikim. The tikkun l'chol hanal, the tikkun for all of this is the nokid trei kasa the chamra biyodei. We said that the shed was holding 2 cups filled with wine in his hands. Rabbeinu Zal explains, Ki yesh shnei bechinas yayin. There are 2 types of wine. Bechinas torah shebal peh. Wine is symbolic of torah shebal peh, Gemara. Bechinas yain malchus rov. The pasuk says in Megillah Esther that the king, the wine was flowing in the king's palace as much as anybody wanted to have. So we see that yayin is compared to malchus. Malchus, we learned earlier, is torah shebal peh. Malchus peh, the mouth, corresponds to the sphere of malchus, and torah shebal peh is also malchus. We learned this earlier. So Rabbeinu Zal says there are 2 kinds of wine. Bechinas torah shebal peh. Torah shebal peh is referred to as wine, bechinas malchus, ubechinas bina liba. And bina, the sphere of bina, which corresponds to the heart, that's simchas halev, the joy that's in a person's heart. That's also a concept of wine. As the pasuk says, the yayin yisamach levav, that wine brings joy to the heart. Gam hu bechinas yayin, that's also a concept of wine. Torah shebal peh is an inyan of wine, and the heart, which corresponds to bina, understanding, is also a concept of wine. Umoirak mehai lahai, and the shed was pouring back and forth from one cup into the other cup, which means, Rabbeinu Zal says, umoirak. The word moirak means loharek, to empty the wine from one cup to the other cup. We also learned earlier in this Torah about a kav hayoroik, a yellow beam of light that surrounds the world, that emanates from bina. That's what bina does to initiate, to start off the process of zilul hashchina. Rabbeinu Zal says that the tikkun for this is sheyamshich kav yoroik mehai lahai, that the tzaddik draws this yellow beam of light, this kav hayoroik, from one side to the other side. the Bechinas Vayorek Es Chanichov, as we learned earlier, that Avram Avinu prepared his youths. Vayorek, we said, is Miloshin Kav Hayoroik, and we said Chanichov, the youths of Avram Avinu were Bechinas Chesed. They were all Nikroin al Shmoi. Avram is known as Ish HaChesed, and all the Talmidim he taught who were Gerim, when they converted, they were called Avram also. So they also represent the Bechin of Chesed. We said that Chesed is the concept of the right side, the right hand. The right hand is the concept of Chibuk. The Yeminoi Techapkeni. There's a pasuk that says, with his right hand he hugs me. And we said Chibuk is step one of the preparation for Zivuk. So Rabbi Nahal says, Chibuk. This is symbolic of Chibuk. Meaning, what does the tzaddik do to initiate this Kav Hayoroik, this beam of light that causes the chibuk of the Shechina with Kudsha Baruch Hu? Sheyikabel the ahavo es haredifa. The tzaddik has to accept its redifa bi'ava. These people who are harassing him and insulting him, he has to accept this bi'ava with love. The yismach b'yisurim, and to be joyous, to be happy with the suffering that he's receiving. And this ahava and simcha, ahava is chesed, which is chibuk. Simcha is the leiv, which is bina, which is this kav hayoroik. Rabbi Nahal says, Shechina shehu torah shebal peh hi bechinas chibuk. This causes the Shechina, which corresponds to the Torah shebal peh, to go into this level called chibuk, which is preparation stage 1 for zivuk. The Bechinas Ani Chavatzeles Hashorin. One of the nicknames of the Shechina is the yellow flower of the valley. Yoroiko Kachavatzeles. One of the forms that the Shechina takes on is yellow like a Chavatzeles. Sheyiyeh Hachibuk B'Shleimus. So that, and we said that this Yoroiko corresponds to Esther, who was Yoroikrakis. The Gemara says she had a pale yellow color, and we said Chut Shel Chesed in Shachalel. She had this Chut Shel Chesed, which represented Chibuk. If you recall that we had in the last shir. The Gemara said that while this shed was emptying from the wine from one cup into the other cup, not one drop spilled out on the ground. And that day it was pouring cats and dogs. Yalu Shamayim Yerda Tzayimos means that the ships that were out at sea rose all the way up. The waves were blowing so hard that the ship went all the way up to Shamayim and then fell all the way down to the depths of the sea. That's how stormy a day it was. Rabbi Nahal explains, Hainu Shehashchina Yoshvo Bein Train Sadikaya, that this represents the concept of the Shechina being in between the two tzaddikim. We said earlier, the Tana who initiated the Torah Shebal Peh, and the tzaddik who's learning his words now, the Shechina, the Torah, which is the Torah Shebal Peh itself, is in between both of them. Rabbi Nahal says, Tzaddik Elyoin, the Bechinas Yalu Shamayim. The Tzaddik Elyoin is symbolized by these words, Yalu Shamayim. He's up in heaven. Yerdu Sahoimois, the Bechinas Tzaddik Tachtoin. The term Yerdu Sahoimois, that refers to the lower tzaddik, the tzaddik who's learning the words of the Tana today. He's learning the Torah Shebal Peh that the Tana was Machadish. Ze Bechinas Neshikin, and the connection that's made between them, where the Torah Shebal Peh unites the Tana with the tzaddik that's learning it now, that connection is called Neshikin. Bechinas Noitfois Moyer Oiver. Neshikin, we learned earlier, the pasuk Sitzaisav Shoishanin, his lips, the lips of the Shechina are red like roses, Noitfois Moyer Oiver, dripping with perfume from such a good smell. So we see that the Noitfois Moyer Oiver, the word Noites, which means to drip. Over here it says not one drop spilled out on the ground. This corresponds to that term dripping that's used specifically about the lips of the Shechina. This connection of Neshikin, Sitzaisav Shoshanin, Noitfois Moyer Oiver, dripping with water. Rabbi Nahal says, Ze Bechinas Neshikin, Bechinas Noitfois Moyer Oiver. By the man, Nasis Bechinas Neshikin. What causes this Neshikin? Bechinas Noitfois Moyer Oiver, this concept of dripping with perfume. Al Yidei HaChochmo Kanal. We learned earlier in the Torah that that's what's brought about through the Chochmah. The Shoma Malchusa the Katle. We said that the king found out what this shed had done, how he was showing off in public like this, and he killed the shed. Hainu sheyaskil the Yishma es haTorah shebal peh hanikra Malchus peh. This means that the tzaddik who's being insulted should listen carefully to the insults and be able to decipher the words of Torah shebal peh that are in those insults, which is called, Torah shebal peh is called Malchus. The Yaskil mitziruf of Hayotzeni Talmud Chacham Shed Yehudi, and the tzaddik should be able to understand from the different words, combinations of letters that are coming out of the mouth of this Chacham Shed Yehudi, Yishma the Yaskil, the Shor Sheshamea HaChilus and Vagiyus Hayotzeni Talmud Chacham Shed Yehudi, he should hear and understand when he's hearing the words, the insults coming out of this Chacham Shed Yehudi, Yishma Torah shebal peh, he should hear it as the words of Gemara. He doesn't hear it as insults, he hears it as Torah shebal peh. And that's how he kills, that's how he destroys this Chacham Shed Yehudi. Ki ikar chiyaz shel haklipois v'hashadim einam ela minitzutze hashchina. Because the main source of life of the klipos and shadim comes only from sparks of the Shechina. Kol zman shehi eina b'shleimus. As long as the Shechina is not b'shleimus, this causes the klipos to be able to have a unika. The yeshla is a chisaron. When the Shechina has a chisaron, a defect or deficiency, that's when the klipos are able to be yonik. Azai yeshlem chiyas, then the klipos have chiyas. But when the tzaddik who's hearing this reacts to it the right way, he's mischakein. He listens carefully with his brain and he rearranges the words into Torah. That chokhmah is what's mala the Shechina to the next level. Azai yeshlohem right. Kishmal is the chokhmah when the Shechina is elevated to the level of chokhmah. Sheshom ikar binyana. That's where the ikar binyana Shechina is. Ukshenivnes b'shleimus. And when the Shechina is nivna b'shleimus, which is through the learned earlier, that's what ends up destroying the Shed Yehudi, meaning cutting off the klipos, not allowing them to be able to draw more than they're supposed to, or to be able to draw from a place that they're not supposed to. Now Rabbeinu Zal summarizes this whole Torah in a pasuk in Tehillim. Till now he took a maimon in the Gemara and showed how in this